Alright, let's do this again. This is like my third time trying to do this, and some jackass just keeps calling. I don't know why. But again, this is Ron Guns here on YouTube. Usually I'm on IG or Facebook, but I'm on YouTube. At my first episode as well, how to pass your CPT or NASM or NASM, however the heck you want to pronounce it. Very clear cut and dry on how to pass it. One, read the textbook. Two, within that, the most important chapters are going to involve the assessment and exercise selection technique and programming. Those are the biggest points there. Thirdly, also importantly, when you're reading the textbook, get that highlighter. Really studying on all the important little details that are very, very important in the material. And most importantly, quiz your ass off. Quiz your ass off. Now, if you have the self-study guide, good. Make sure to take those quizzes and make sure that you know that you keep quizzing yourself, you keep studying until every time you take a quiz, you're scoring a 10. And by 10, I mean 100%. All right, just keep to where all of a sudden you're able to answer those questions without barely even 30 seconds of a thought. Just checking traffic because I ain't trying to get hit around here. That's not only just the individual chapters, you know, of the study course on the self-study guide, but also importantly, also your practice quizzes. Like for example, you have the test your base knowledge test, which is 100 questions. If you look at it this way, because the exam itself is 120 questions, only 100 of them are getting graded. So if you're taking that 100 question practice quiz, give yourself a margin of error of 15 to 17%. So if you score 100, minus 20, just so you get yourself a realistic view on how it's going. If you're getting 100 every time, you can feel more confident. Now, however, they also added a final practice quiz, which is 120 questions, very similar to the real thing. Again, even if you score over 100 points, just go ahead and deduct those extra points, because you want to really set yourself to a realistic expectation of what's coming. Also bear in mind, the questions that will be on the exam aren't necessarily from NASM. They're actually being put together by people outside. They could be experts from the industry itself, from even other accredited sources. The point is, exams are from third-party experts, and they're coming from 500 questions that they gathered together. Out of those 500 questions, 120 of them are going to be individually, they're going to be randomly selected for you. So let's say you're in a room full of other guys testing for the NASM. Guess what? The guy next to you isn't necessarily going to get the same line of questioning that you will, or the girl next to you, etc., etc. And again, quiz your damn ass off. And as for how I studied, the way I did it was this, right? I would normally study, I want to say 3-4 times a day. No, 3-4 times a week, right? At least 2-3 hours. 2-3 hours. That hour, you always want to have at least a 10-minute break while you're in the beginning of your study. So for example, you're grinding in a good half hour, take a 10-15 minute break just to give yourself a breather, reassess, you know, just to refresh your mind. That way you aren't grinding your gears too hard. Like for example, what I would do is, for example, let's say I'm studying on certain chapters and everything, and I need to take a breather and everything. Take 10-15 minutes reading a book that's completely unrelated to the source material. Just so that when I get back into it, it's like, oh, okay, I remember this. You know, because you don't want to burn yourself out either. And I say 3-4 times a day. I mean, 3-4 times a week. 3-4 times a week, 2-3 hours. Like for example, usually when I was studying, my Mondays and Tuesdays, I'll take 2 hours to study after my 1 hour workout before working. And then Wednesdays and Thursdays, I would do 3 hours, so on and so forth. And, you know, and then again, you have those little intervals to give yourself room to breathe, to reassess yourself, and also to just freshen your mind. Because sometimes you have to step back so that everything looks clearer to you. And that's very important if you want to get shit done. So there's that. As for the outcome for me, well, I got my certification on Halloween. And the best part of it was, this is what I did. This won't necessarily work for everyone, but it definitely worked for me because I believe in memory retention like a motherfucker. Number 1, quiz your ass off before bedtime, at least an hour or two before you knock out. So for example, for me, I made sure I took the 100-question practice base knowledge quiz. And then I took the 120 practice quiz, both one after the other before bedtime. And then woke up in the morning, as my girlfriend drove me over, I took at least the 100 question one. And here's the thing. Some people may be like, yeah, the minimum score is 70. Don't aim for 70, aim for 100. I'm sorry. Don't aim for mediocre, aim for excellence. No way going about it, plain and simple. But a lot of people, they're like, the magic number 70. Screw that. Go for 100. Chances are you won't get 100. Unless you're really, really crazy brilliant. But nevertheless, aim for it. Aim for it, aim as high as you freaking can, so that once it's said and done, you'll barely be able to tell the difference between the practice exam and the real thing. The best thing about that is this. When it was time to take the test, and I finally walked in, 1, confidence level was there. 2, I was focused. 3, being well rested. Very, very important. Be hydrated also. Then when I went in, took the exam, if you feel a little jittery, feel a little nervous, look, just take some deep breaths. I do the same thing with my 5-year-old. I tell her, Lori, take a deep breath. Feel better? Good. That easy. And you walk in, sit down, sort yourself out. Get in on it, right? And then start sitting down. And very important thing, this is also shown in the webinars that I had to study in the current course. Treat every question as though it's gradable, because you don't know which one's gonna be the research question. Okay. So you have to treat every question as though you're being graded on it. I don't care if it's 120 questions. Count it as though they're going to be quizzed. Yes, there are 20 that will not be graded for you or against you, but just pretend you're being graded against you, right? Secondly, when rolling in, when you look at the questions, think and don't overthink it. Use process of elimination. Very common sense stuff that we learned back in elementary, junior high, and high school when it comes to reading the question, understanding what it's asking for. You want to look into that, because sometimes we make a mistake by overthinking it. We try to grind through it too fast, and that's how problems start. So read the question, see what it's asking for, look for operative words. Also, when you're looking at the answers to choose from, the ones that seem the dumbest, get rid of them. Once you start, and that's why, again, quiz your ass off, because by the time it's test time, you'll be able to know which ones are the dumb answers and which ones are 50-50. So again, and then also knowing perspective on when it comes to the body part they're asking for. So sometimes, normally, when you're having a question regarding a back exercise, right? When it comes to rows, lat pull down, etc., you're specifically rows, you know, standing rows, seated rows, usually the first thing on your mind is you're still thinking of your chest being in front of you and then your back is against the wall. You have to pretend your back is your chest and your chest is your back. You have to think a lot of mirror type of mentality in that way, like up is down, down is up, kind of like when you're flying an airplane in a video game. Same concept. For example, Alright, there's one aspect where sometimes something will be abduction from the perspective of the chest, but in reality it's adduction from the perspective of the back. Little things to look at that. Also, when it comes to the squat, I will say this is very important because I made this mistake a lot when I was studying before the exam. Make sure that you remember the takeoff is actually when you go down, not when you're popping back up. I used to have that mentality too, but you eventually learn the takeoff is when you're dropping down, when your ass is flexed, not when it's tight. That's the important thing to learn. And the landing is when you're standing up. Also, despite how you may feel sometimes when you're running on your own, back foot is always plantar flex, front foot is always dorsiflex. These sound like silly little things to talk about, but guess what? This is the kind of shit that will bite you in the ass later if you don't remember them and keep them in mind. So, that is how I passed my exam, and that's how I studied. So, I hope, as oversimplified this may be, this helps some of you guys. Alright, take care.